I never imagined my dream home could turn into such a headache over something as seemingly simple as a brick driveway. But that's exactly what happened 2 months after I moved into Lakewood Heights. From the moment I stepped onto the property, I admired the meticulously laid red bricks, painstakingly placed by my grandfather back in 1972. To me, it wasn't just a driveway. It was a piece of family history. Unfortunately, that sense of pride didn't last. Donna Lewis, my next-door neighbor and a member of the HOA board, was constantly lurking around, snapping photos of my house. The first time I saw her, I tried a friendly wave, but she shot me a cold glare instead. Before I knew it, I received an official notice claiming my driveway was non-compliant, demanding I switch to asphalt or concrete immediately. Reading that, I felt both confused and outraged. This brick pathway had been here long before the HOA even existed. Why should I have to rip apart something so meaningful, especially if it doesn't bother anyone else? Hoping to keep things civil, I approached Donna to explain the sentimental value behind every single brick. She barely let me finish my sentence. "We have the authority," she declared, voice sharp. "You have 36 hours to comply." It was then I realized I was up against more than just a couple of picky HOA rules. Could there be a deeper motive behind all these threatening fines? Before I had time to figure it out, it became clear I was already in the middle of a heated standoff with the entire HOA, personified by a powerful and overly ambitious neighbor. I couldn't shake the unsettling feeling that there was more to Donna's demands than just a strict rulebook. One late evening, while I was sorting through my mail, I caught a glimpse of her wandering around my property. Camera phone aimed not only at the driveway but also at my mailbox, and even my lawn ornaments. It wasn't mere curiosity. The way she moved and the sheer number of photos she took suggested something bigger. That same night, I decided to start documenting her every move. I installed a small camera near my front window and began taking notes on the unusual behavior I witnessed, from her sneaking peeks at my yard, through binoculars, to quietly muttering into her phone while pointing at my bricks. Then, by pure chance, I overheard a tense conversation between Donna and another board member right outside my fence. She bragged about driving out problematic homeowners, using selective enforcement to slap them with massive fines until they had no choice but to give in or sell. Her words sent a chill down my spine. Could my beloved brick driveway just be a convenient excuse for her to wield power, and maybe even score some financial benefit? Curious, I dug up every piece of HOA paperwork I could get my hands on. Buried in the older files, I discovered references to Armstrong Builders, my father's company, outlining the original construction details of Lakewood Heights. The more I read, the more certain I became that Donna's motive went far beyond aesthetics. It was time to bring in reinforcements. I discreetly texted my dad, Henry Armstrong, giving him a rundown of the escalating situation. He responded immediately. "Keep collecting evidence, son. Don't mention me yet, but let's make sure we know exactly what we're dealing with." Armed with his encouragement, I felt the stakes rising. If Donna was truly planning to profit off forcing me, or others, to rip out perfectly fine features, then exposing her scheme wasn't just about saving my driveway. It was about standing up for everyone in the neighborhood. Things reached a turning point when another notice arrived. This time threatening eviction within 48 hours, unless I tore out the driveway. The audacity of it nearly made my blood boil. Knowing how significant those bricks were to my family, I felt even more determined to hold my ground. I decided it was time to let my father in on every detail. After all, not only did his company originally develop parts of Lakewood Heights, but he also had enough legal and construction expertise to spot any foul play from a mile away. I remember his calm voice over the phone. "Send me every photo and recording you've got, son." Keep my name out of it for now. It was odd, because usually he preferred a direct confrontation. But this time, he suggested I bide my time and keep gathering evidence. Maybe he saw how Donna's power trip could backfire on her if we built the case slowly and meticulously. The very next morning, I woke up to the sound of rumbling trucks outside. Donna stood triumphantly beside a group of contractors who looked eager to start tearing up my driveway. My heart pounded. These people were trespassing with no official permit. I placed a quick call to the local police, explaining the situation. As the officers arrived, Donna flaunted a clipboard, claiming the HOA had full authority to proceed. But when the cops asked for legitimate paperwork, she just fumbled for words. The looks on those contractors' faces said it all. They realized they'd been dragged into a mess without any real legal backing. Meanwhile, I silently thanked my dad for telling me to wait. The more outrageous Donna's actions became, the clearer it was that she had no solid ground to stand on, and that, in the long run, would be her downfall. Not long after that botched attempt to destroy my driveway, I heard a knock on my front door. When I opened it, 2 police officers stood on my porch, alongside Alice, my kindly elderly neighbor who seemed visibly upset. She handed me a stack of letters. Fines from the HOA for the most absurd offenses imaginable. The color of her garden gnome, the length of her hedges, even the supposed shine of her mailbox. It was clear Donna's heavy-handed tactics weren't limited to me alone. While Alice explained her ordeal, the officers took notes. They asked if I wanted to press charges for the trespassing incident. Part of me was ready to say yes on the spot, but a text from my dad flashed across my phone screen. "Hold off. More evidence is coming to light. Let's make this airtight." Just then, a sleek sedan pulled up to the curb. Out stepped Robert Gleason, a lawyer who introduced himself as the HOA's legal representative. He looked from the police to Alice, then at me, and his confident demeanor slipped for a split second. I saw the recognition in his eyes. He knew exactly who I was, or more specifically, whose son I was. He quickly pulled Donna aside, whispering furiously while she looked panic-stricken. Clearly, they had no idea that Henry Armstrong, the CEO of the company that originally built Lakewood Heights, was directly involved behind the scenes. And judging by their frantic conversation, they were about to learn the hard way just how big of a mistake they'd made trying to evict his son. 2 days later, I received an unexpected email, a notice of an emergency HOA board meeting at the community center. The subject line read, "Discussion of non-compliance and enforcement." It didn't take a genius to figure out this was Donna's attempt to regain control after her blunders. Word spread quickly throughout Lakewood Heights, and by the time I arrived, the place was packed with residents, most of them victims of Donna's overzealous penalties or vague citations. The meeting began with Donna standing at the front of the room, flanked by a few staunch supporters from the board. She looked tense, but tried to maintain an air of confidence, rattling off a speech about maintaining community standards and protecting property values. Then, she launched into a tirade about how my brick driveway was a dangerous precedent. I was about to speak up when the doors swung open, revealing my father, Henry Armstrong, accompanied by a local news reporter and a cameraman. Donna's face went pale. In the hush that fell over the room, Dad calmly introduced himself as the CEO of Armstrong Builders, the very company that had laid many of the streets and foundations in Lakewood Heights decades ago. He displayed documentation showing that certain brick features, including my driveway, were explicitly permitted under the original development plan. But that wasn't all. Next, he produced a stack of financial records indicating that Donna's husband's construction firm had been awarded every new driveway contract in the neighborhood at inflated prices. The hush turned into a low rumble of outrage as residents realized they'd been coerced into paying more, often under the threat of eviction. Donna tried to cut him off, but she was drowned out by neighbors demanding answers. Then came the knockout blow. One of the older board members, visibly shaken, admitted that some of them had received kickbacks from these contracts, pressured by Donna's relentless push to label everything as a violation. Furious whispers swept through the crowd, and Donna's remaining allies began inching away from her. In just a few minutes, the entire board meeting went from targeting my brick driveway to uncovering a scandal that implicated multiple people at the highest levels of the HOA. As cameras rolled, I could see the realization on Donna's face. She'd picked a fight she couldn't possibly win. After the uproar at the meeting, Donna tried to make a hasty exit, but a few outraged neighbors blocked her path. The local news crew captured every second: the confrontations, the tearful testimonies of those who'd been fined into near bankruptcy, and the moment a police officer stepped forward holding a warrant. The same officer who had come to my house earlier had quietly continued investigating. Apparently, my security footage showed more than simple trespassing. It suggested intentional property damage and possible conspiracy to commit fraud. As Donna stood there, cornered and at a loss for words, a wave of collective relief washed over the residents. Henry Armstrong, my father, calmly stated that in light of the recent evidence, Armstrong Builders would be terminating its agreement with the current HOA board unless immediate changes were made. Furious shouts erupted from the crowd, people calling for a complete overhaul, new elections, and refunds for bogus fines. Within minutes, a few braver board members stepped up to propose an emergency vote to remove Donna from her position. The motion passed with overwhelming support. Donna, pale and speechless, found herself effectively stripped of power in the very meeting she'd convened to target me. By the time the police ushered her out to answer for her actions, she was still insisting it was all a misunderstanding. But even her staunchest allies had abandoned her, trying to distance themselves from the scandal. The following morning, the new interim HOA board publicly apologized to the neighborhood. They vowed to review every violation and refund any unjust fees. My brick driveway was officially recognized as a historic feature, complete with a commemorative plaque honoring my grandfather's craftsmanship. Dad offered discounted repair services to anyone Donna had bullied into unnecessary construction work. Watching neighbors gather to thank him and to finally voice their own concerns without fear felt like a turning point for Lakewood Heights. In the end, Donna learned a harsh lesson. When you manipulate and intimidate people for personal gain, the fallout can be brutal. For me, though, the biggest victory was standing on those red bricks, knowing I had protected my grandfather's legacy and helped ensure that future residents wouldn't be victimized by a corrupt HOA ever again. If you found this story enlightening, please subscribe for more eye-opening tales of HOA drama and community triumph. Don't forget to like and share. Every action helps us stand up to unethical practices and support fair neighborhoods. Join our community, and let's keep these powerful stories alive.